Marie Osmond has always been the picture of grace and strength. From her days as a teen singing sensation to becoming a beloved TV star,
For more than 5 decades, Marie Osmond has been one of the most recognizable faces in American entertainment. She grew up in front of the cameras, built a career that spanned music, television, and business, and somehow, in the middle of all of it, raised 8 children. Some of those children came from her own body. Others came into her life through adoption. All of them, she has said again and again, mean more to her than any award she has ever won. Over the years, fans have watched pieces of that family's story play out: a heartbreaking loss, a joyful wedding, a quiet return from a mission trip, a daughter who found love and was met with her mother's full support. None of it happened in secret, and none of it needs to be dressed up as a scandal to be worth telling. The real story of Marie Osmond's family is compelling enough on its own. 8 very different people, each shaped by fame, faith, hardship, and love in their own way. This is their story, told as accurately as the public record allows. Marie Osmond was born Olive Marie Osmond on October 13, 1959, in Ogden, Utah. She was the 8th of 9 children, and the only daughter among 8 brothers, born to George and Olive May Osmond, a couple who raised their large family within the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. 2 of her older brothers, Verl and Tom, were born deaf, and the family's closeness in caring for them set a tone of devotion that would carry through Marie's own approach to parenting decades later. Her brothers formed a singing group that found national popularity in the 1960s, eventually landing regular appearances on The Andy Williams Show. That exposure pulled the family from Utah to Los Angeles, chasing bigger opportunities in entertainment. Marie herself first appeared on that same show at just 4 years old, though for years afterward she remained mostly behind the scenes, helping backstage with costumes and watching her brothers perform while she stayed close to her mother and younger siblings at home. She has described her childhood as one saturated in music, always being played, rehearsed, or written somewhere in the house. It's not surprising, then, that it didn't take long for her to step out from behind the curtain herself. Marie Osmond became a household name at 14 when her single, Paper Roses, topped the country music charts, making her the youngest female artist at the time to reach #1 in that genre. It was a defining moment, proof that she wasn't simply riding her brother's fame, but building something that belonged entirely to her. She followed that breakthrough with more country hits through the 1970s and into the mid-1980s, including Meet Me in Montana, There's No Stopping Your Heart, and You're Still New to Me. But most people of a certain generation remember her best from Donnie and Marie, the variety show she co-hosted with her brother Donnie until 1979. Their on-screen chemistry made them one of the most beloved sibling duos in American television. Behind that success, though, the Osmond family went through real financial hardship in the early 1980s, losing much of their fortune. Marie had to work to support both herself and her family, moving between acting projects and a short-lived variety show of her own before returning to her musical roots. In 1985, she signed with Capitol Records and released There's No Stopping Your Heart, which brought her back to the top of the charts, not just a career comeback, but a demonstration of the resilience that would define much of her life. Marie's personal life moved through its own share of change. In 1979, she was briefly engaged to a fellow acting student, and she also had short-lived romances with a few other public figures of the era. In 1982, she married for the first time to Steve Craig, a college basketball player. Their son, Stephen James Craig Jr., was born the following year. But the marriage was young and didn't survive the pressure surrounding it, including intense media attention, and the couple divorced in 1985. A year later, Marie married record producer Brian Blossel, whom she'd met through a family connection. Over the course of their marriage, they built a family of 7 more children, 2 biological, Rachel and Matthew, and 5 adopted, Jessica, Michael, Brandon, Brianna, and Abigail. Marie and Brian were married for 21 years before separating in 2007, describing the split as a mutual decision rather than one driven by blame on either side. What happened next surprised even Marie. Years after her first divorce, Her son Stephen helped arrange a reunion between her and his father. The two began seeing each other again, quietly at first, unwilling to make it public until they were certain. When their son announced he was getting married, Marie and Steve realized they didn't want to attend as exes, so in May 2011, they remarried in a small ceremony, with Marie wearing the same dress she'd worn at their first wedding nearly 3 decades earlier. She would later reflect that a second marriage teaches you which things really matter, and which things you once thought were important but weren't. Outside of music and television, Marie Osmond has spent much of her adult life as an advocate, an author, and a businesswoman. She helped found the Children's Miracle Network, an organization that has raised enormous sums for pediatric hospitals across North America. She also became an outspoken voice on maternal mental health after writing about her own experience with postpartum depression in her book Behind the Smile, a subject that was rarely discussed openly by public figures at the time. She built a successful doll collection sold through QVC, appeared as a contestant on Dancing with the Stars, and co-hosted the talk from 2019 to 2020. She continued, releasing music well into her 60s, including the albums Music is Medicine in 2016 and Unexpected in 2021. But by her own account, none of those accomplishments compare to the role she considers most important, being a mother to 8 children, and later, a grandmother many times over. Marie's family includes 1 son from her first marriage and 7 children from her marriage to Brian Blossel, 2 biological and 5 adopted. She has said publicly that she doesn't think of the adopted children as any different from her biological ones, and that some of them, in fact, remind her more of herself than her own biological children do. It's a small comment, but it captures something real about how she has approached raising a blended, complicated, deeply loved family. Stephen James Craig Jr. was born on April 20, 1983, when Marie was just 22 and still adjusting to life after the peak of Donnie and Marie. He grew up largely outside the spotlight, but his relationship with his parents became the thread that eventually reconnected them. When Stephen announced his own engagement years later, his parents' decision to remarry so they could attend as a couple became one of the most touching footnotes of Marie's story. Today, Stephen and his wife Claire have 4 children of their own. Marie has spoken openly about the joy of becoming a grandmother, recalling how her son surprised her with the news on his 30th birthday. She frequently shares glimpses of family outings with Stephen and his children, a relationship that appears to have only grown warmer with time. Rachel Lauren Blossel was born on August 19, 1989, the first of Marie's children with Brian Blossel. Rachel found her own creative outlet, not in music, but in visual design, building a career as a costume designer and hairstylist. In 2012, she married Gabriel Kruger in a Christmas Day wedding in Park City, Utah, and the couple went on to have 2 children, a daughter and a son. Marie has shared her delight over her grandchildren publicly, including heartfelt tributes to Rachel on her birthday, praising her as a devoted daughter, wife, and mother. Rachel has largely kept her own life away from the press, choosing to let her work speak for her rather than her family name. Michael Brian Blossel was born on May 4, 1991, and was adopted by Marie and Brian as an infant. By most accounts, he had a gentle, thoughtful nature, but privately, he struggled with depression and addiction struggles that are, unfortunately, common but rarely visible from the outside. In February 2010, at 18 years old, Michael died by suicide. It was a devastating loss for the entire family, and Marie has spoken about it publicly in the years since, not to sensationalize the tragedy, but to try to help other families understand that grief like this doesn't simply resolve with time. She has described it as something you carry rather than move past, and has spoken about the wider ripple effect that a loss like this leaves behind for everyone who knew him. Before his death, Michael had been open about seeking help, including time in rehab in 2007, and Marie had spoken with pride about his courage in facing those struggles. By 2009, there were real signs of hope. He was doing well academically and had plans to study at a design institute. His death the following year was, by any account, a tragedy that no family fully prepares for. Michael's memory remains part of how Marie talks about motherhood, grief, and the importance of taking mental health seriously, both for young people and for the parents supporting them. A note on this topic: if you or someone you know is struggling with thoughts of suicide, you can reach the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by calling or texting 988 in the United States, or find international resources through the International Association for Suicide Prevention. Brandon Warren Blossel was born on November 24, 1996, and like Michael, was adopted as an infant. Brandon has kept an unusually low profile compared to his siblings, rarely appearing in interviews or on social media. What is known about him publicly is his passion for music. He played bass in a metalcore band called Nevar, a striking departure from his mother's country roots, but a sign that the family's musical instincts run in more than one direction. Marie doesn't often post about Brandon, which seems to reflect his own preference for privacy. On the rare occasion she has shared birthday messages for him, she's described him as one of the kindest people she knows and expressed pride in the man he has become, even without offering many public details about his day-to-day life. Brianna Patricia Blossel was born in 1997 and adopted by Marie and Brian as a baby. She found her professional calling in the beauty industry, working as a makeup artist, including on projects with her own mother, such as The Talk and Marie's Las Vegas shows with Marie Osmond. In 2018, Brianna married David Schwepp, and the couple has 2 daughters. Their first child's birth included a frightening complication that required a stay in the neonatal intensive care unit at a Children's Miracle Network hospital, the very organization Marie helped found decades earlier. Marie shared an update at the time thanking the medical staff and asking fans for their support, and the family was relieved when her granddaughter recovered well. Brianna has continued to keep much of her life private since, balancing her career with raising her 2 daughters. Matthew Richard Blossel was born on July 6, 1999, in Provo, Utah, the second of Marie and Brian's 2 biological children. Like his siblings, he was raised within the Latter-day Saint faith, and that faith became a defining part of his young adulthood. In 2020, Matthew returned home after completing a 2-year religious mission serving communities across several areas of Michigan. Marie shared the moment publicly, describing how proud she was of him for choosing that path rather than an easier one after high school. Just days after his return, Matthew left again, this time for college, and Marie has spoken about how bittersweet that transition felt, even as she admired his drive and character. She's described the simple act of driving him to college and listening to him talk about his experiences as one of the moments she'll always treasure as a parent. Abigail Michelle Blossel, known to the family as Abby, is Marie's youngest child, born in 2002 and adopted as an infant. Growing up as the youngest in a large, high-profile family comes with its own challenges, but Marie has described Abby as unusually kind and emotionally open for her age, noting in interviews how many teenagers openly tell their parents they love them the way Abby does. Abby has also shown some of her mother's musical instincts. In 2019, Marie shared a video of Abby singing in her school's nativity play, saying the performance moved her to tears. Whether or not Abby eventually pursues music professionally, she's already established herself, in her mother's eyes, as someone with her own light and her own voice. Jessica Marie Blossel was born on December 17, 1987, and was adopted by Marie and Brian when she was almost 2 years old, becoming the first child they welcomed together as a couple. Unlike her mother, Jessica never sought a career in the spotlight. Instead, she built a life centered on service, becoming a police officer in Provo, Utah, and also working as a crisis counselor, helping people navigate addiction and other serious personal struggles. Marie has spoken with obvious pride about Jessica's chosen path, describing the demanding, largely unglamorous work her daughter does to help people quietly, without any expectation of recognition. In June 2019, Jessica married her longtime partner, Sarah. Marie flew in personally to be part of the celebration and posted a warm public message afterward welcoming Sarah into the family and expressing how happy she was for both of them. The response from fans was overwhelmingly supportive, with many praising Marie for the openness and warmth she showed her daughter on that day. In interviews since, Marie has continued to speak about how happy she is that Jessica has found a loving partner in her life, nothing hidden, nothing withheld, just a mother expressing genuine joy for her child. Jessica's story stands out not because of any late-breaking revelation, but because of how consistently and publicly Marie has supported her daughter from the very beginning. It's less a secret confirmed than a family value demonstrated in plain sight that Marie's love for her children has never depended on the paths they choose. Perhaps one of Marie's most talked about parenting decisions had nothing to do with any single child, but with her plans for what comes after her. In 2020, Marie revealed that she does not intend to leave her fortune to her children. Instead, she plans to direct it toward charitable causes. Her reasoning wasn't about withholding love, it was about protecting her children from what she sees as one of the more damaging things a parent can hand down: the removal of the need to work for something on their own. She's spoken about watching children from wealthy families struggle when they're simply given a fortune, rather than the tools and drive to build something themselves. Her stated hope is that each of her children takes pride in what they build on their own terms, while she continues supporting causes like children's healthcare through her charitable giving. It's a decision that says as much about her values as anything else in her long career, a belief that resilience and self-reliance, not inherited wealth, are the real gifts worth passing down. Marie Osmond's life has included massive commercial success, painful personal loss, 2 marriages to the same man, and 8 children who have taken wildly different paths, from law enforcement to costume design, from a religious mission in Michigan to a makeup career in Las Vegas. Some of those stories are joyful. One is genuinely tragic. None of them needed to be exaggerated or reframed as a scandal to be worth telling, because the truth of Marie Osmond's family, messy, resilient, and full of love, was always compelling enough on its own. What comes through most clearly across every chapter of her children's lives is that Marie has shown up for each of them consistently, publicly, and without conditions, whether that meant flying in for a wedding, sharing a grief that never fully goes away, or simply posting a birthday message for a son who prefers to stay out of the spotlight. For a woman who has spent most of her life in front of an audience, it's the quieter moments with her family that she's described, over and over, as the ones that matter most.